Welcome to the aha moment, and we are happy to have you joining us today for the podcast that uncovers the insights that will help business owners just like you to work smarter, lead better, and create lasting value. My name is Elizabeth Cipolla. I'm your host for today's podcast episode, and today's podcast episode is hitting on a topic that I believe probably, and you would agree, every business owner should care about, and that is why so many owners don't get what they want when it comes time to sell their business. So we are all seeing more unsolicited offers than ever before as business owners, those surprise calls you can't refuse, and they make you pause and think, am I ready as a business owner? Is my business ready? But more often than not, if you're honest, the answer is no, right? So joining me today are my colleagues, Phillips, Mike Tellers, and between the two of them, they have helped countless organizations navigate valuation, succession, and sale. And they've seen firsthand what drives value and what quietly erodes it. So Mike, Aaron, welcome to the aha moment.
Thanks, Elizabeth.
Thanks for having us, Elizabeth.
Absolutely. So we're going to start with the big one. And what I would like you to tell us is why so many business owners do not get what they want when they sell.
I think starting down that road, it's probably more important to understand how value is actually driven within the businesses. And I think most business owners, or at least what we find, start with what they want, not necessarily looking at what it actually is worth in the true essence that people look at the valuation methodologies. Aaron, you can chime in if you want, but most of the time when businesses or when someone's looking at a business that they're going to acquire, that value is often driven by EBITDA, which is earnings before interest, depreciation, amortization, taxes, and with that, there's generally a multiple. And those multiples are not just driven by financial performance, but other intangible metrics, sometimes referred to as four capitals. There's human capital, structural capital, customer capital, and social capital. And those actually drive about 80% of the value of the business. Because if you think about it, somebody buying a business wants to make sure the people are fantastic and that the business doesn't need the owner every single day and every single decision to make the business operate and grow. The structural systems are in place, the processes are in place, equipment's in good condition. Customers, that not just customers but also vendors, that's your whole supply chain. Looking at those factors and identifying that those relationships are intact and strong from suppliers all the way down to your customers, also a key component. And then the social capital is the culture. If a culture is broken and the team's not happy, hard to get everybody to be productive and quality goes down. So a lot of owners don't take an honest look at those before going down the path of maybe I should sell my business. So when you spoke earlier about readiness, it's being honest and evaluating a lot of those factors before you even start down the path of should I sell my business.
And Mike, you said it really well. I think the piece that the other piece that we need to add to it is Mike, what's the percentage of businesses that don't sell? So meaning I'm at this point in my business and I don't have another plan and I want to sell it. I feel that's what needed. Is it 75%?
Yeah, so maybe the better way to phrase it isn't that what percent don't sell, but the percentage of businesses that actually where the exit or succession happens the way the owner thinks it will is only about 25%. So if you think about that, a lot of people start down a path they think is the way they're going to exit their business or sell it. That might be the route they want to go, and it doesn't actually happen. So that is a key component of this process.
What are some of the most common factors the two of you see as to why it doesn't shake out far more often than not of, with what they thought it would?
So one of the more common is that the owner isn't actually ready to exit the business. I think a lot of times exit plannings become a thing where owners start to think about it when they want to retire and not thinking about it early enough and making it present tense, so to speak. So um, when they finally start to think about it and they get down that path, then they start to realize, I don't know what I'm going to do when I'm not here, or I'm the only one that can do this. This person couldn't possibly do what I'm doing. Um, I think that's a key element within it. Another part of it is there are probably two styles of running a business that would probably be important to talk about. Um, a lifestyle business, and when you look at that style of business, that's a business where it's run, uh, return some level of income to the owner, but it's largely contingent on the owner themselves. He or she managing the business in a way that they retain all the intangible capital. They have the relationships that they're not able to pass down. So somebody coming in would have a hard time absorbing those relationships and making sure the functionality is still there among the team. Even the processes aren't often documented in those situations. Um,
Yeah, what we see in this area is customer concentration. So we've had businesses that had 90+% of their work with a particular customer. That doesn't make a buyer feel good. That scares, or it significantly discounts the price. So, okay, I've got 90% of my business with this company, and I don't have a relationship with that company. It exists in the business right now. And so the buyer looks at it and says, I'm still interested. They've got good equipment, but that's going to significantly discount the price. And so I think customer concentration, one of the top ones. The other is team. Do they have the team in place that the owner right now is head of sales, the owner is the president of the company, the owner serves in a significant financial capacity, as Mike talked about, lifestyle businesses. And so that next owner is going to have to build out the team. And so that's going to cost them, money and impact the financials of the business. And so that impacts it. And so I would say those are two of the top ones: customer concentration, not the team not being there. I think the other pieces is the equipment, meaning, so a company that's not consistently reinvesting in their equipment, in making sure that they're on the cutting edge and maintaining good, putting capital back into the business. When they go to sell, if they haven't done that, the potential buyers look at the equipment and they're like, geez, we had one recently where a buyer walked through the building and they're like, I don't know if I can move that. I don't even think that, that there are several pieces of equipment here that I'm not even sure would be able to be moved to a new location, because they were looking at that. And so that doesn't get anyone excited. And so when you're thinking about, if you're not focused on those critical areas that Mike pointed out earlier, that business is not going to sell, or it's not going to sell at the number that owner typically wants.
So what do you find, in your experience, and you're alluding to it in some of the things you just stated, but when a prospective buyer is looking to purchase a business, what are they really buying? What are all the things they're really buying? Because it's not just profits, obviously.
And the financial performance is a key element of what they're buying, but they're looking at that to see the cash flow component of the investment they're about to make and when they're going to get a return on that investment. But more importantly, what they're buying are the team, the processes, the facilities, and the manufacturing capabilities. If it's a manufacturing entity, something of that nature, and I think with that, looking at some of those key items, if the team's in place and the team can handle the day to day, and it's not highly contingent on the owner being involved in everything, and the processes are effective, and the culture is vibrant, and people obviously enjoy what they're doing in an environment that I just described, the quality's there. Somebody can invest in that business and know they don't have to buy the company and then infuse more capital early on just to keep it moving and return a profit.
That's a good question, Elizabeth. And people buy, so certain, we've sold businesses where they wanted a manufacturing facility east of the Mississippi. And so this particular buyer said they've got a proprietary product, they've got a manufacturing facility east of the Mississippi, and they have done something in their manufacturing operations that we couldn't. They were not able to, for some reason, this company wasn't able to figure this out, and so they're like, I want to buy that company. And so everybody, certain buyers are going to look for it for certain items. So for example, some of our buyers are actually looking for a team, meaning quality manufacturing, highly skilled laborers are very high demand. And so we've had companies that were actually looking to make an acquisition to acquire a team. We have a company right now that's looking to make an acquisition because their manufacturing space is completely filled, and they would like to. It's expensive to build. They would like to. They have a strategic acquisition. It gets them additional capacity and some additional team, but more capacity than team.
Interesting. So when you talk about, and you gave some really good examples when it comes to what they're looking for, especially as it pertains to team, I'm just curious, and you were talking a little bit about this earlier, but financial performance. Can you break it down into what that means in practice, just so our listeners can today who might not be, CFOs or, like CPAs such as you, just so they can understand what that means when you say they're looking for financial performance?
Sure. From the financial perspective, I mean, most companies you're looking for a strong balance sheet, positive working capital to handle finance operations on a day-to-day basis, as well as not highly leveraged, something that can generate a profit without being highly leveraged. On the income statement side, they're looking for EBITDA somewhere in the range of 10 to 15% of your annual sales. That's usually a kind of a sweet spot. What we found with a lot of the work we've done recently, oftentimes what can cause some hesitation from a buyer's perspective is if that EBITDA number is significantly lower than that. Unless they can find upside or a strategic way they themselves can improve that or align with their current offerings to improve that EBITDA level.
It's funny, on top of when we talk about financials, it's not uncommon for business owners to run certain things through the business legally that they can. Well, the difference is when they go to sell, that next buyer isn't going, and so they're going to have to what they call normalize EBITDA.
I mean, I think more on the normalization side, you're looking for one-time expenses or income items that aren't maybe part of the company's operations. You're really trying to make sure that when you're looking at the financials of the company, you can make them comparable to other entities in that space. So the goal is more or less looking at one-time expenses that are they can happen from time to time, but like if you think about a manufacturing company that has a piece of equipment that they no longer need and they sell, and there's a large gain on that piece of equipment, they're not in the business of buying and selling equipment. It's just something that they no longer were going to use and they were going to sell. So that's, if I'm looking at that company as a potential target, that really isn't a part of their normal operations. You want to maybe factor that out because that's not something you would expect on a reoccurring basis from year to year. And it's really looking at those one-time items, and factoring those out so that you can level the playing field, so to speak, and understand really what you're buying compared to other companies in that same industry.
Owner compensation is another one that sometimes comes out where an owner is compensating himself much more than what an individual that would serve in that capacity as president in the future, and so that's sometimes a piece. And so we tell our business owners to actually, as they're thinking about this, make sure they're looking at their financials and being clear and and running things appropriately through them and paying themselves appropriately, so that when they're looking to sell, that doesn't become a conversation. When you have to start explaining a
Right.
whole bunch of different items. Well, that's it was a one-time X, that's a one-time Y, and that becomes a
Mhm.
conversation that buyers don't like to hear.
Right.
And then so that way we discount it even further. And so
Mhm.
when we talk about this, Mike and I, with when you're running your business for value,
Mhm.
you never make a mistake. And so when
Mhm.
you're running your business for value, all the items that Mike talked about earlier, that's running your business for value, focusing on the equipment, focusing on the people, making sure that the team is in place, making sure that we are, building, good, strong customer base, build good, strong vendor base.
Mhm.
When you're running your business for value, you'll never make a mistake.
Mhm. That's it's good when you break it down that way. I think it's something that definitely, definitely would resonate with owners. I want to talk a little bit about something. It goes back to what you mentioned earlier, Mike, and that is, hey, so often we find that owners looking to sell or plan their exit strategy are doing it when they want to exit as opposed to when they should be doing it, which is, much sooner. So I'm wondering if, either one of you could share with me if we have listeners who are thinking, well, I'm not looking to sell anytime soon. What do you think they should be thinking about right now?
Well, I think I think the adage is that it's a three-legged stool. There's the business side, the financial side, and the personal side. And I think when you're looking outward as a business owner, um, at some point you will have to exit, whether it's on your own terms or
Hmm.
some higher powers,
Right.
which is often not thought of, but that can be the case. And so I think making it present tense and starting as early as you can to keep thinking about it. I think sometimes probably 5 years. If you really wait it out, maybe 5 years before you think is your timeline to get out. Um, but really going back to that three-legged stool that I mentioned, you need to understand not just preparing the business and building value within the business, but also understanding working with your financial advisor and understanding what you need to carry out that personal leg of the stool. Like, hey, when I
Hmm.
retire, this is what I see myself doing, and this is what I'm going to do with the time I haven't had because I spent the last 30 years running a business that's occupied most of my time. And mapping that out and understanding the value you need. It's estimated that for a lot of business owners, 80% of their net worth is tied up in their business.
Hmm.
So knowing what you need to get out of your business as early on as you possibly can, and then figuring out and kind of identifying that gap. Here's roughly what my business would be worth. You can do that utilizing your CPA, just or an
Hmm.
M&A advisor, just to get some rough estimate of that, and
Hmm.
then work on those components to build that value. Take an honest look at your business and say, my human capital is low. I need to fill in these key roles because the next person doesn't want to do those three functions like I'm doing. They're going to want to hire people there.
Hmm.
And it's really identifying those, and you don't have to do it all at once, but starting earlier on, you can make those investments back into your business over time. And that would put you in a better position value wise that maybe you bridge that gap now that your financial picture meets that personal need. So I think you have to keep all three of those in your sight line.
Hmm.
And the earlier on you do it, the better off you are.
Yeah, I want to play on that one just a bit because the early piece is critical. And the reason it's critical is because we said it. Only one time out of four, a business owner that what they anticipate is going to happen happens. And
Hmm.
so that's not all bad.
Hmm.
It's just saying only one time out of four. So if you're doing this right when you want to do retire, then you're probably not going to be in that 1 out of 4 bucket. I
Right.
mean, chances are the 75% are that you're not in that bucket. And so
Hmm.
now a business owner wants to retire and they're forced to stay in the business, and
Hmm.
they're forced to continue on. And what we see is that's never a good situation because they're tired. They want time.
Right.
I've got grandkids. I've got a place here. I want to spend time. And it never ends up being good. So starting at 5 years in advance. So if something changes and that what you anticipated doesn't happen, it doesn't have to be a bad situation. It has to be just a different situation. The second piece, you said, what should a business owner be doing? A business owner should look at their business like a buyer would. They should really evaluate the business like someone coming in and saying, what am I getting? I've got great equipment. They've consistently maintained the asset. The facility looks extreme. It's immaculate. It's clean. It's organized. It's really well laid out. They've got a team that is 100% in place that if the owner went away today, they could function without him or her. And just look at your business like a buyer would. And if they do that, and they would be honest, being self-honest with yourself, like, oh, I'm not, we haven't put a lot of capital back into the business. Our equipment is pretty dated. Okay, well then you've got 5 years. What are we going to do about it?
Good advice, and I want to build on that. I have a follow-up question because it's not lost on me that many of our listeners today might not be in the type of industry where they have a lot of equipment. Let's say it's an industry similar to ours,
Sure.
right? The service industry or professional services industry, I should say. What type of things should a business owner in the professional services space be looking at that a potential buyer would be looking at?
Human capital. Human capital. What do they have in place? Processes. Do they have technology? How are they utilizing technology in that space? Are they way behind, or are they on the cutting edge and really utilizing technology? How much of their business is actually repeat? Meaning, and we've got, long-term contracts and it's repeat business and it's a diversified customer base. Similar things, other than you're talking about, obviously their equipment isn't as significant as the people.
And I would argue in that particular area, one of the most important components that owners could look at in that is the customer capital. And I would actually say, in that sense, a lot of these professional services firms, that especially those that have been around a while, most of the relationships, or a large portion of them, reside with the original owners who have spent time developing those relationships. And the key component for them would be making sure they're actually transitioning those relationships, because without the relationships, most professional services, people align with their advisors and the people they like working with.
Right.
And your mom and dad's advisors might not be your advisors. It's just the nature of the beast. So to the extent that those relationships can be transitioned to other key employees within that organization, because the owners that are going to be selling one of those businesses are selling it to somebody that's not going to want to step in and try to learn and meet people and establish a relationship with somebody that relationship should already be existing,
right,
when they walk in the door.
And that truly, in a professional services environment, that's a multi-year process. And it has to be strategic, meaning we talk about it with the customer and saying, listen, I'm not going to be here in probably 5 years. And so we value you as a customer. And over the next, every meeting, you're gonna have another individual on our team with it. And it's part of it is for them to learn you to learn them, and gain a level of trust and understanding. And if firms that don't do that run the risk of, when that person leaves, all they're doing is filling the shoes. They're not truly replacing that individual.
Right.
And that's a big deal. And we work on that with professional service firms, where if they're not making a strategic move well in advance of when that relationship, and somebody's going to leave at some point, they're going to retire, it's time. What are we doing? How are we transitioning that relationship and making it intentional? And it's not meaning, okay, we're going to think about it. No, it's intentional. Over the course of this next 3 years, here are our top customers, and Mike's going to replace the relationship with Joe, and Elizabeth's going to replace the relationship with Dawn, and so on. And we're strategic about how we do it. And so professional services firms, that's what they should be thinking about.
One other thing I'm just curious about, and I would imagine this question might apply to some of our listeners. So I would imagine that there are times when, if you look at someone's chronological age, they think to themselves, oh, I have another 15 years before I retire. However, maybe there's a terrible medical diagnosis or something where the luxury of time and all these best practices you're recommending, it isn't possible. So what advice would you give in a situation like that where someone, they only have, I don't know, less than a year to figure something out? What would you recommend the focus and the plan be for someone in that situation?
I would immediately get my team of advisors together. So that's my legal team, my accounting team, my wealth advisory team. And many times DA serves as called the quarterback, but somebody to quarterback all of those relationships, meaning we're getting them all together. We're evaluating, from estate. Is the estate in order?
Right.
Do we have everything we need as best we can? It may not be perfect because we don't have time, but if the best we can, is the estate in order? From the accounting perspective, are we from a taxes and everything aligned? If something happens to me today, is the person that the business is going to go to, is that organized? Are we for my financial advisor, how much of this does this family need to retire, and how are we going to do that? What needs to happen? And so if they get that diagnosis, I would get all my advisors together immediately and begin to craft that, what we call an emergency room succession plan.
Referred to as the 5 Ds: divorce, distress, death, disability, and disagreements are all reasons that can cause a nearer term exit than people originally planned on. So, to an earlier point, constantly running your business for value puts you in a better position should one of those unforeseen circumstances come your way.
Right. So what if I were to ask you each, what is the biggest takeaway, the biggest aha moment, so to speak, you'd like our listeners to walk away from today's podcast episode remembering? What would that be?
I would say make exit planning present tense and put value acceleration within your business as a regular practice as early as you possibly can.
Great. Aaron?
Make sure you are thinking about succession at all times, as Mike talked about. Make exit planning present tense. And if you use the time, if people think 5 years is too much, and we always say, please, if you use 5 years in advance, you will be in such better position. So my biggest aha moment after working with dozens of families a year is the families that plan 5 years in advance end up in a much better position than ones that don't.
And you know what, hearing you say that, Aaron, what's the worst case scenario? If you plan too far ahead, it's nothing bad is going to happen, versus if you wait too long to start.
The downside risk is so much more.
Right.
And I'll end on this is, many times business owners say, well, if we start talking about succession, like, people are going to get worried. And I say to them, your people are talking about succession right now.
Yes.
And they're just talking about it behind your back.
Exactly.
They're wondering what the heck you're going to do. You're not getting any younger. You don't look any younger.
Right.
And so, by the way, they're talking about it. You're just not in the conversations.
Right. All the Botox in the world can't mask the reality of your age. Right?
That's right. That's right.
So thank you to our listeners for joining us for another podcast episode of the Aha Moment. And for our listeners, if this episode got you thinking about your business's value or what it would take to get what you really want for it, we certainly invite you to check us out, and I will be happy to give you that information. You can subscribe on Spotify. You can also follow us on LinkedIn or check out our website, decisionassociates.net. And you can do that to check us out. You can listen to all of our past episodes and get any notifications of future episodes that come to be. But until next time, I'm Elizabeth Sapola, Aaron, Mike, and we're reminding you that the best time to prepare for your next chapter is today.